All right, today we're going to take you through a mini knee clinic to help you get moving. Knees are a big deal. They're a cause for a lot of injury when the knee joint is not prepared to handle the stress that you're putting into it. So we're going to put together some simple movement concepts to help stimulate the knee, keep it healthy, and keep it working for many years. You know, they say there's a 70,000 mile or 70-year warranty on those knees. We want to extend them out. So the first thing we want to recognize is that the knee can rotate, and most people don't really realize that off the top of their head. They don't think of their knee as a rotating joint. They think of it as a hinging joint where it closes and opens, but in fact your knee can rotate. So to get you started, take your knee, bend it at about a 90-degree angle, and drive the heel into the ground. Create some gentle pressure there, and that's going to be your pivot point. And take your two fingers and place them around the insertion point of where the shin bone enters the knee joint. That's your target right there. And you want to start to rotate from the knee. Now you're isolating the lower leg and you're rotating it from the knee. Now if you've never done this before, this is going to be a little bit of a surprise because you're going to stimulate some movement in the joint that you might not be accustomed to. The less you're aware of this, the more you need it, because this is going to be how you keep this knee fresh for longer, many years into the future. All right, so you're rotating, and you want to see how far the rotations can go today. So when you internally rotate, you're turning the shin bone pointing inward. You want to see how far you can get that rotation into place. That's your end range of motion for an internal rotation. And as you externally rotate, you turn the shin bone outward, and you feel the end range of motion. You get to that spot where you can't go anymore. That's your range of motion. Okay, so you go back and forth, and you want to stimulate synovial fluid. Now, synovial fluid, what is that? Synovial fluid is the lubrication in your joints. It's like the motor oil of a car. It's what keeps it moving right. And as we mature, that synovial fluid can recede. It's very much a use it or lose it capability. So when you rotate your joint like this, it facilitates use of synovial fluid. It keeps it flowing. And you want to expose the joints to enough range of motion to get more synovial fluid into the joint to keep it healthier for longer. Okay? And you want to apply just some gentle pressure in that heel as you're rotating back and forth. Okay, and then you can go ahead and switch legs. All right, you want to make sure you get both knees going. All right, so we go to the other side, and you might notice maybe this side feels a little bit different than the other side. Depends on how your running is going, how your body's feeling. Sometimes one knee is more mobile than the other, sometimes less. So you dig in, apply some gentle pressure into the heel, create that 90-degree angle in the knee, and then rotate. And as you isolate and rotate, you can feel as your fingers press into the joint, you can feel the movement. Okay, a lot of little motor muscles turning in there. You want to take your time and learn the mechanics of how your knee rotates. Observe the end range of motion. When you totally externally rotate out, find the spot where it can't go anymore. That's your end of range. Internally rotate as far as you can go. That's your end of range. A couple other pointers to remember. Make sure you're isolating the knee. Okay? So you might find that you have a habit of using the hip to move the knee. Okay, and we want to remove that dependency on one joint, right? You want the knee to move like the knee, and you want the hip to move like the hip. You don't want the hip to move the knee for you and vice versa. It's very important that you isolate, keep the rest of your body controlled as you rotate back and forth. Good, okay? So now let's get into some mechanics as to how the knee is really moving, okay? So when you dig in and notice that it's rotating, you're going to feel where is this rotational capacity pulling from, right? What's the muscle helping to drive this? And you're going to notice your hamstring plays a huge role in this process. So when you internally rotate all the way, you can feel on the inside of your hamstring there's actually two tendons stacked together here, right? Those tendons are pulling down. So it's the hamstring that's pulling in order to facilitate an internal rotation. That's the inside of the hamstring along here. When you're doing an external rotation, Right? You're rotating outward. You're going to see the outside of the hamstring. The external side of the hamstring is pulling. So as you're rotating now, grab the hamstring and feel how one side of the hamstring has to pull in order to facilitate the rotation. And as you go back and forth, you can feel the tension. Okay, this is going to add up because when you think about it, some of these injuries that we're getting with our knees, where are they coming from? Well, a lot of times it's because the joint is taking on force or pressure that's greater than what it can withstand, meaning it's too weak. So when we get thrust into a situation where a lot of force is being applied down to the knee, if it slips in the wrong direction, it can create that sprain, that injury that can really hurt you. So we want to create stronger joints and better mobility by recognizing the range of motion and strengthening those tiny supporting tissues to help keep it healthier for longer. Okay, opposite side, right? You can feel the hamstring moving back and forth. Okay, that's a big breakthrough. If you've never done that before, if you've never recognized the mechanics of how your hamstring really operates, this is a big breakthrough. And it's also going to lead us down the next path, which is understanding how to move the knee in and out of contraction and extension, and how to increase the strength in the hamstrings and also the quads in order to create a stronger joint mechanism. Okay, so good. That's a good start. Now we'll go ahead and get into controlled articular rotations. That's CARS for acronym, okay? Controlled articular rotations. And in this process, we take the knee. What we do is we're in a seated position, okay? We're going to pick up one leg using our hands, right? So you grab underneath and secure it. And now you're going to internally rotate the leg and you're going to contract. And notice as you contract, your internal rotation can go very far. And then you can externally rotate here and then extend out, maintaining that external rotation. You get to the end, you're locked out, gently internally rotate and contract, externally rotate and extend, internally rotate, contract, externally rotate and extend. After 3 reps, reverse the flow. Your legs in extension and externally rotated. Contract with external rotation. Internally rotate and extend. Externally rotate and contract. Internally rotate and extend. Externally rotate, contract. Internally rotate and extend. That's just the start. You do 3 rotations one way, you do 3 rotations going the other way, and that's enough for you to get started. Now as you progress, you might add on some reps, you might add on a weight to your ankle to help you increase load. But that's the fundamental right there, getting used to that simple movement. Some tips you want to remember as you're going through this process: make sure you're using the knee and not the hip. Again, we might rely on our hip to try to move the knee. You need to isolate and use only the knee. So if you find yourself moving out and rotating the hip outward like this, stop. Keep the knee up here, pull the leg in tight to the body, bring the hip into a deep flexion, rotate, contract, externally rotate, extend. Internally rotate, contract. Externally rotate, extend. Internally rotate, contract. Externally rotate, extend. Then reverse the flow. Externally rotated, contract. Internally rotate and extend. Externally rotate, contract. Internally rotate, extend. Externally rotate, contract. Internally rotate, extend. Some advanced knowledge, you'll notice that as you contract the knee, your range of motion is going to be wider. So when you pull the leg in like this, you're going to be able to maximize that internal rotation so that the foot's almost turning over like this. And then from there, you can externally rotate very far and extend out. But as you extend out, you're still externally rotating, except the range of motion narrows as we extend the knee. So here the range of motion is very limited, but as I contract, right, look, it keeps turning and turning and turning and turning until you get to maximum capacity. Same thing as you go the opposite way. The range of motion narrows as you extend the knee, and then as you contract, the range of motion gets larger. Okay, so as you advance, you're going to pay attention to these tiny details to help you strengthen the tissues in the knee so they can handle more force, more exercise, more movement, more longevity, all right? All the good stuff to keep you going. All right, great job. So now we're going to get into some stretch and flex. How to touch your toes, all right? So it's always been a physical challenge getting out there and trying to touch your toes. It's difficult. But the mistake that people make is they put too much emphasis onto the flexibility of the hamstring, where they really need to put more emphasis on powering up your quads and your hip flexor to fold your body forward. So let's talk about that. I'm going to forward fold. Now, I'm a person who's not traditionally very flexible. I've had to work very hard just to be able to reach my toes at all. But when I learned this secret, it helped really put me over the top because I learned the dynamics of how my body reacts to this traditional posture. So we get our legs out front. And first off, start flexing your quads. From this position, it might feel different. Maybe you've never done this before. You're trying to fire up those quads, lock them out at the knee. You feel all that muscle tissue fire up. So right there, you're going to start to feel something. And as you want to forward fold, all right, first off, don't worry about touching your toes right away. If you can't do it today, that's okay. Right? We're all trying to build up and get better. So your emphasis is going to be locking out these quads, and then from the hip flexor, folding the body forward. Okay, you're going to feel some tightness in the hamstring, but you really want to start closing the distance between your torso and your legs. So as you're reaching forward, maybe you only get this far. Take your hands and push them down into your shins and close your abdominal wall down at the hip flexor while maintaining a lock on the quads. Good. Keep forward folding. Okay, and then maybe you can reach a little bit further and keep forward folding. And then maybe you reach a little bit further and keep forward folding. And then maybe you reach your toes, just like that. It's magic. Hold this stretch for 1 minute. Keep those quads locked out. You're going to feel that intensity in the hamstring. Make sure you're using your belly and your hip flexor to fold over so that you don't put too much stretch in the hamstring. Right? Sometimes we think we're not flexible in the hamstring. Your hamstring's probably flexible enough. It's the rest of your moving parts that have to coordinate. And as we're doing this, we're keeping the knee locked out in an extended position. Breathing. Now, it's very important we learn to hold stretches for at least 1 minute. Holding a stretch for 1 minute gives the brain and body time to coordinate and learn how to adapt to the stress imposed. When you only stretch for a few seconds, it's not enough time for your body to adapt. So give yourself time to stretch. You see the pro athletes, they stretch for a very long time before they compete. There's a reason for that. You can start using that technique as well. So we're continuing to fold forward, breathing, probably about halfway there. Maintaining the stretch. If you go a little bit further, if you're feeling good, or if this is a lot for you, I can understand if you're slowing down. If you want to put your hands here and push forward this way, and over time, the stretch is going to just get better. It's not about where you start, it's where you finish. You can finish strong every day. And then slowly roll yourself back up. Bingo. And that's how you do a real toe-touching stretch. Great job. Okay, and now we're going to get into hamstring contractions. Right, this is going to be fun. And you might have a chance to learn a little bit about what it's like to get a cramp. Okay, so cramps are fun. They're part of the learning process. So we get into one knee position. And we lean forward. Front side knee is going to drift over the top of the toes. Back side leg is in rear hip extension, so you're creating that forward lean into the hip. And you're breathing. And now you're going to reach back and you're going to grab that foot and pull it into a deep quad stretch while keeping your hip in extension. Now you're going to hold that stretch and feel the intensity. It might start to fire up really quickly. So you want to get comfortably uncomfortable getting into that stretch. Now get a few warm-ups in. If you've never done something like this, quick pointer, lean into the legs so that the bottom portion of the thigh bone is what's touching the ground. If you're up high like this, you're putting a lot of pressure downward into the knee, but when you lean forward, it's just the edge of the thigh bone that's taking on your body weight, and it's going to eliminate some of that pinching sensation if you were straight on top of it. Okay, now here's the next step. After you've warmed up with the stretch, you want to start contracting passively right? You're squeezing your hand up with the foot, and you start to contract the hamstring muscle from this position. And as you start to contract that muscle from this spot, you might start to feel a little cramping sensation. That's blood flow entering the muscle tissue at its maximum contraction, at its range of motion potential. So that can be a good thing. Well, it definitely is a good thing because you're helping to feed the muscle tissue. So after you start contracting and learning what that feels like, the final step is doing active range of motion. What we're going to do here is we're going to release the hand. We're going to try to keep that foot as high as we can and try to contract the hamstring as much as possible to hold it up. So you breathe, inhale, release the hand and try to keep that foot up. Count it off for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. You might feel a big cramping sensation in your hamstring just now. That's okay. That's normal. The muscle tissue is going through confusion because you're putting it into a position it's not accustomed to, and it's receiving maximum blood flow at its maximum range of motion and contraction. So if you've never done that before, the cramping is normal, okay? Then as you progress, you want to maybe do this for 10 seconds, hold it for 20 seconds, hold it for 30 seconds, maybe one day you hold it for a minute. But you're going to notice as you release, the longer you hold it, the harder it is to hold it up. Over time, it might start to slip down. So the longer you can hold it up, the stronger you're getting, okay? So try it out for 5 seconds, try it out for 10 seconds, try it out for 15, 20, 30, however long you can keep contracting. That's going to really power up and make the hamstring that much more stronger and robust and able to handle more force, and also keep the knee protected because it has better muscular control. Now, with any workout program, with any sport, there's always going to be risk. So we can't prevent risk from happening, but we can mitigate the risk through simple exercises to strengthen a joint so that way it can increase its ability to move. And that's what healthy movement's all about. So I want to thank you all for being part of this. If you've got any questions, email moremobileyoga@gmail.com and get mobilized today. You can follow my hashtag across all social media, moremobileyoga. Thanks and have a great day.